From across the country. Some of us are bathing in the sun on the beach, and some of us are scraping the snow away. So that is Canada. So I will call this meeting to order. So welcome to meeting number 8 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Agriculture and Agri-Food, pursuant to orders of reference of April 11th and April 29, 2020. The committee is meeting for the sole purpose of receiving evidence concerning matters related to the government's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The order of reference of April 11th also stipulates that only motions requesting or scheduling specific witnesses can be considered by the committee, and that such motions shall be decided by way of recorded vote. And as you know, today's meeting is taking place by video conference, and the proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So that you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. In order to facilitate the work of our interpreters and ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like a regular committee meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. Also, when you intervene, please make sure that your language channel is set to the language that you intend to speak, not the floor. This ensures the best sound quality possible for our interpreters, and this is very important. Also, before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can click the microphone icon to activate your mic. And I will do just that. Just hang on, and I will go en français. Je tiens aussi.
I would also like to remind you that all the members and the witnesses should intervene through the chair. Members that need to ask to speak, when it's not their turn to ask questions, must activate their mics and state that it's a point of order. If a member wants to intervene in a response to a point of order raised by another member, he should use the raise your hand function, and doing so, the chair can know that he wants to speak. To do so, please click on participants at the bottom of your screen. When the list appears, you would see right next to your name that you can click on the raise your hand icon. Speak slowly and clearly, and make sure that your microphone is off when you are not speaking. As you know, we strongly urge you to use headsets. If your headset has a small mic, make sure that it doesn't hit against your shirt as you speak. In case of a technical difficulty, if you have problems listening to the interpretation, or if you're accidentally disconnected, please inform the chair or the clerk, and the technical team will try to solve the problem. Please note that we might be forced to suspend the session to make sure that all members can fully participate. Can all the participants click on the right top side of their screen to make sure they have a broad view? You should be able to see all the participants on the screen, so all participants to the video conference can see each other.
We usually do in a regular meeting, a committee meeting, we will suspend in between panels or sections of the agenda. With that, we are ready to begin, and I would like to welcome our witnesses. And for the first panel, from the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance, Madame Claire Citeau, Executive Director. Madame Citeau, you're here and we can hear you. Could you just say hello?
Hello. Bonjour.
Bonjour.
Hello.
Kathleen Sullivan, Chief Executive Officer. Ms. Sullivan, you're present.
Hi there. Yes, I am.
Thank you. And also James Donaldson, member of the board of director. Mr. Donaldson, you're also present?
I am here. Yes. Good afternoon.
I guess we didn't hear you, but perhaps your microphone was off. But
yes, I am here. Good afternoon.
Okay. And from the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, Mary Robinson, President. How are you, Mary?
I'm well, Patrick. How are you?
Good. Good to see you again.
Nice to see you.
And also Scott Ross, Assistant Executive Director. Mr. Ross, you're here?
I am. Thank you.
Okay, so now we'll start the opening statements, and we'll start with the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance, Madame Claire Citeau. So up to 10 minutes. The floor is yours.
Merci, Monsieur le Président et membres du
Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Director of CAFTA, the Canadian Agri-Food Trade Alliance. As you know, CAFTA is the voice of Canadian agriculture and agri-food exporters, representing the 90% of farmers in Canada who depend on trade, as well as the ranchers, producers, processors, and agri-food exporters who want to grow the economy through better access to international markets. This includes the beef, pork, meat, grain, cereals, pulses, soybeans, canola, as well as sugar, malt, and processed food industries. These sectors represent 90% of Canada's agri-food exports and support about 1 million jobs in urban and rural communities across Canada. A few short months ago, just as the pandemic shutdown was beginning, I spoke at an event where I said we were worried that Canadians took free trade for granted. And today I'm here to say it's more important than ever that we not take trade for granted. First, on Canadian agri-food exporters feeding Canada and the world, I'll give you a brief overview of where CAFTA and our membership stand. With most of the world on lockdown, it's become crystal clear just how foundational agri-food trade is for our economy and way of life. From feeding people here and abroad to the critical role global agri-food supply chains play in supporting jobs, the term essential service does not even begin to describe how vital farmers, food manufacturers, and others are to world in crisis. Canada's export-oriented agri-food sector feeds our families and families around the world. Canada has become an agri-food powerhouse precisely because we have specialized in making products that the world wants and needs. In all this, CAFTA remains focused on advancing trade liberalization and ensuring the voice of our exporters is heard. That's why we're pleased to be speaking with committee members today. For our members, it's a mixed bag. Grain farmers continue to operate more or less as normal and face headwinds of rising non-tariff barriers with market access issues in various markets. Demand is strong for some grains, although the impact of massive U.S. subsidies for corn and soybean add to the anguish over a long list of issues. Pulse demand is high and prices are up. Normal also means that canola exports are still blocked by China, and pulses and durum wheat continue to face trade barriers in key markets such as Italy, Peru, and Vietnam. There are increased costs and absenteeism in food manufacturing and questions about the future of the restaurant industry. It's a very hard time for hog farmers and cattle producers with backlogs of livestock growing. For all, there is anxiety, uncertainty, and challenges in unprecedented ways, whether it's canola, malt, soybeans, feed, and even sugar, which food processors rely on. Despite the crisis, those in the agri-food supply chain are a resilient bunch. But we are concerned about one thing above all, the fear that this crisis will bring about new trade barriers and other forms of protectionism, and that rules and trade commitments that have been made will be undermined and not followed. I worry about the talk of self-sufficiency in food, nationalism, and fear it will lead to a new form of protectionism in the name of precaution. I want to acknowledge the leadership Canada has played in keeping agri-food trade open. First, we're very grateful that the Canada-US border has remained open for trade. We have no more important partner than the US. Agri-food especially, we are reliant on inputs, ingredients, and labor from the US. Our integrated supply chains remaining functional is one of the reasons grocery stores stay full today. The implementation of CUSMA will help ensure a continued strong foundation for trade with the US, and we're eager to see this agreement enter into force as quickly as possible. On safeguarding rules-based trade, In recent weeks, we've also been grateful for the leadership role the federal government has played in keeping global agri-food supply chains open. We've welcomed commitments to keep trade lines open and opposing export restrictions to help maintain resilience and avoid disruptions of production and distribution of food. We know that supply shortfalls are best addressed through unfettered flow of products and increased production. Essentially, in these dire times, more trade is needed, not less. CAPTA is pleased that the federal government has been at the forefront of efforts to safeguard the WTO and the rules-based trading system. There's a new interim appeal mechanism, which is also very positive and returns some certainty to the global trading system. And we're hopeful that the appellate body will soon be restored. When the threat of the pandemic subsides, our entire industry stands ready to work with the Canadian government to demonstrate that free trade needs to play a central role in helping economies return to full speed. In fact, embracing unfettered trade in agri-food should be central in the plan to reboot Canada's economy. People around the world will continue to need to eat, and agri-food trade gives us one of the best engines for growth. Trade will be vital, but only if we limit protectionism and bolster international cooperation. In all this chaos, Canada has a unique opportunity to find bold new ways for international trade and agri-food trade. The federal government is well positioned to take us there and help reach the goal of $75 billion in agri-food exports by 2025, as identified in the Barking Report. Canada's government should also champion regulatory modernization. The economic roundtable singled out the need to update domestic regulations and bring them in line with other jurisdictions. Recommendations now need to be enacted. Much of what is needed is contingent upon other nations doing things to assist our export trade. Trade in finished goods and cost efficiency regulatory processes in Canada help all links of our value chain be competitive. At minimum, Canadian rules should evolve rapidly to support our competitiveness. As recovery plans get developed, we want to share our ideas and work with you on actions that will give exporters confidence on a path forward. On maximizing and enforcing rules-based trade. For us to take flight, we need our existing free trade agreements to work. For example, the CETA holds so much promise for agri-food exporters, yet continues to fall short. The EU is not abiding by commitments to remove technical barriers shutting out our exports. At the end of this summer, it will be 3 years since the deal came into force and our exports are flat when they should be much higher. On the other hand, EU agri-food exports to Canada continue their double-digit increase. It's time to find solutions. Such work includes achieving mutual recognition of meat processing systems, developing protocols to verify livestock production practices, addressing misaligned regulation of crop protection product, more predictable and timely review of seed technologies, ensuring country of origin labeling requirements are not applied in a trade restrictive manner, and addressing illegal EU sugar subsidies that make our exports uneconomic. Italy provides an example of where Canada needs to be more assertive in defending our trading interests. Quiet conversations to date have not resolved the issue. It's important that Canada challenges these measures so that Italy protectionist measures do not spill over into other countries and products. Adding insult to injury, EU officials stress that Canadian exporters need to meet the high standards of the EU when we're the 5th largest agri-food exporter in the world for good reason. We've asked the Canadian government to take up these issues with EU political leaders in order to secure commitments and timelines to remove and address the barriers that persist. The world is moving towards the enforcement of rules, and Canada should too step up its response and push for enforcement. India, a major market for pulses, has not followed internationally agreed upon protocol and is not living up to their WTO commitments. Peru and Vietnam are major markets with unwarranted SPS measures that are created significant risks and uncertainty for wheat exports. Canada needs to be proactive and nimble in its response to the growing use of non-tariff barriers being used to block agriculture exports. I'll conclude by saying that the best way to support free trade is to continue to pursue new and deeper trading relationships around the world. If we do that, our export-oriented agri-food sector can help anchor Canada's economic recovery by powering ahead in global markets. Before the crisis, our sector was growing faster than all other sectors of the economy. We believe that a strong agri-food trade sector means a strong economy and a strong Canada. Free trade has always been a key part of Canada's growth, and it will remain the case ahead. We look forward to working with all parliamentarians to advance our shared goals that are rooted in free trade, support for the rules-based global trading system, and the belief that Canada can compete and win in the world. Just as keeping trade open is feeding people today, embracing it tomorrow will be essential for economic recovery when life returns to normal. Thank you. Merci beaucoup. I look forward to your questions.
So thank you, Madame Citeau. And now we'll go to the Food and Beverage Canada, up to 10 minutes, whether it's one or two. You can just indicate if you're going to split your time. So Mr. Sullivan and Mr. Donaldson, go ahead.
Thank you very much, and I will be sharing my time with James Donaldson. Good afternoon to everybody. My name is Kathleen Sullivan, and I'm CEO of Food and Beverage Canada. FBC is the national association representing Canada's food and beverage manufacturers. My members include the country's food and beverage associations, as well as food and beverage companies. And I'm joined here today by James Donaldson, who is the CEO of Food and Beverage, BC Food and Beverage, apologies. Later today, in fact, you'll also be hearing from another of my members, CTAC, which represents Quebec's food and beverage manufacturing sector. And together we represent about 1,200 member companies. Right now I'm going to turn it over to James to talk to you for a little bit, and then I'll return at the end to close our remarks.
Thank you, Kathleen, and good afternoon, everyone. I wanted to start by describing our sector. While some of you might feel that that's unnecessary, we have learned through this pandemic that here in Canada, even among senior policymakers, there is a fundamental lack of understanding of how Canada's food system operates. Without this knowledge, it's impossible for governments to adequately support us and to ensure the food system continues to produce. Food processing is a critical step in the food system. It's a step that takes place between primary agriculture and retail, and it represents over 60% of agri-foods industry revenues in this country. While many of our fresh produce travels directly from farm to the grocery store, the majority of the food you and I buy has undergone a transformation into one of the companies Kathleen and I represent. When you think of your grocery store, across virtually every aisle and department, deli, baked goods, cheese, pastas, sauce, meat, flour, sugar, granola bars, baked goods, these products came to you from a food processor in this country. The work we do takes place in manufacturing plants. Food and beverage processing is the largest manufacturing in this sector. It includes over 7,000 facilities, employing close to 300,000 workers, and produces 118 billion in products every year. Our plants can be found in every one of your provinces, and they range in size from a few employees to over 10,000 staff. In terms of COVID-19 and its impacts on our industry, it has hit our sector and our workers very hard. Food has been declared an essential service and critical infrastructure, and yet our plants have continued to operate with little recognition and even less support. Food manufacturers have virtually impossible jobs. They have been asked to keep their plants running so people like you and myself can eat. And employees and production workers have been asked to come to work every day while their families and everyone else they know have been told to stay home. At the same time, food manufacturing are tasked with keeping our workers safe from a deadly virus, while maintaining operations. Before COVID-19, our main focus was food safety, and our plants were set up to facilitate food safety. So all of us overnight, we had to pivot and introduce new ways of social distancing in closed buildings that were never designed for this. Companies have accomplished this through a number of means. Certainly an increased usage of PPE, protective personal equipment such as masks, gloves, and hand sanitizers. I should note that these items are normally used in a normal course of operation, but of course the usage has increased during this pandemic. The challenge, though, is that both access to PPE and the cost have been prohibitive. In many cases, the cost of these essential materials has escalated by several hundred% in the past 2 months during this pandemic. Introduction of health screening tools like thermal imaging cameras to determine whether or not employees have elevated temperatures. Building temporary non-structure barriers like plexiglass screens, which are possible but not in every environment. And other increased measures like increasing sanitation of touch points, staggering shifts, staggering use of common areas like lunch and change rooms. So the industry's pivoted very well, and a lot of the measures they've taken have been an extension of the food safety protocols that they've already had in place. That said, we do estimate that there has been a cost of in excess of $800 million, which is a cost we just cannot pass on to the consumer. In addition, we've seen an almost complete collapse of the food service industry, only 1/3 of which has been made up by increased retail. And even retail sales have focused primarily on staple items as opposed to specialty items. In BC in particular, it's a $10 billion industry, but it's really largely dominated by small companies who really specialize in innovative, unique, niche products. And those items have also been in decline even at retail. So with that, I'm actually going to pass things back to Kathleen, who can talk a little bit about some of the liquidity strains on industry. Thank you.
Thanks, James. So we have a huge problem across Canada's food manufacturing sector, and this is not going to be a short-term crisis. We are facing a new normal of extraordinary cost pressures that we have to address somehow, either by means of government support or through food price increases. But right now, in the immediate term, there is really no relief for these companies. First, most food companies or food manufacturers are not qualifying for the COVID emergency relief programs. Programs like the Canada Emergency Wage Benefit are based on revenue losses. And of course, we are still selling food, so our revenues haven't fallen. What has happened, though, is that our costs are skyrocketing because of the elements that James talked about. What we really need is for these emergency programs to be looking at the impact on net income and use that as a real measure of loss. The other problem we have is it's virtually impossible in this country for food and beverage manufacturers to pass cost increase on at the best of times, and certainly not of this magnitude. Our retail sector is very strong and it's very concentrated. It creates a balance, an imbalance of power that is very challenging for particularly for small and mid-sized companies. And just last Friday, with no advance notice, we saw one of the major food retailers in this country send an announcement to food companies with no forewarning, telling them about immediately imposing new penalties related to delivery issues. We know that there was an announcement earlier this week from the Prime Minister of $77.5 million. As James pointed out, we estimate the cost of adapting to COVID-19 to be over $800 million. And more to the point, the announcement this week really isn't designed to address these cash crunch or liquidity issues. It has been designed more to allow for investments by food companies. The ongoing pressures that we're facing are undoubtedly going to destroy some companies and drive them into bankruptcy. Food availability, food affordability, food sovereignty are all going to be impacted. And frankly, if we do nothing, Canadians will still eat. And what we will see is that more and more of our grocery shelf will be filled with products that come from offshore. So what do we do? Well, on February 24th, 14 food processor associations, essentially representing the entire industry, wrote to the Prime Minister and the Federal Minister of Agriculture highlighting our concerns. And we suggested that the federal government give serious consideration to expanding the existing emergency programs so that they were better suited for the companies in our industry that are really facing liquidity pressures. We also suggest the federal government look at more creative measures like tax credits, for example, for companies to, at a minimum, offset the additional costs of COVID-19. We also, though, looking forward, need to take a serious look at how our food system is structured and supported. This pandemic has magnified the importance and fragility of the food system. It has also highlighted some significant weaknesses that we have, and we will not be solving these issues with short-term business as usual approaches. I note this morning the announcement by Minister Bains of a new industry strategy council to look at the impact of COVID-19. I sincerely hope that that council includes someone from this, Canada's largest manufacturing sector, who really understands how food processing and the food system works. And I want to close with probably the most important message I can deliver to you, and that's a message about our workers. For 2 months, as a pandemic has ravaged the globe, food workers have continued to go to work so that we can have food. Our workers are heroes, but they do not have superpowers. Despite all of our efforts, they are getting sick. And tragically, we have now heard of 3 food workers in Canada who have died after contracting COVID-19. We send to their families and their colleagues our deepest condolences. And I would ask that you as industry leaders help us ensure that the Prime Minister, that the public understand and acknowledge the efforts that these workers are providing and the benefit they're providing to all of us to make sure that we have food in our pantries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. And now with the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, I don't know if you want to split your time, Ms. Mary Robinson, President, and also Scott Ross, Assistant Executive Director. Go ahead for up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you to the committee. We appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Mary Robinson, and I farm on a 6th-generation family farm in PEI, and I'm the president of the Canadian Federation of Agriculture, the largest general farm organization in Canada. I would like to start by thanking and acknowledging the work of Canadian governments of all levels. Public servants and elected officials have been working 24/7 to help Canadians and keep us safe during these difficult times. The federal government has designed and executed many programs for both business and Canadian individuals. We are talking today how we can bring this ingenuity and commitment to ensure an adequate food supply and support for our farmers. The first wave of COVID-19 has exposed Canada's food access weaknesses as potential disasters. If there is a second wave in the coming months, or if there's a similar pandemic in the years ahead, and we have not addressed the food supply issues we are here to discuss, we risk economic and human tragedy. As leaders, we have an obligation to plan for the worst and drive for the best. These coming days and weeks are critical if we are to ensure Canada's domestic food supply is secure both now and into the future. Farmers go to work every day with the goal to put quality food on the tables of all Canadians. Canadians take this for granted, and they should. Canadian farmers do not let Canadians down. But COVID has put Canada's food production, supply chain, and food access in danger, and the food crisis is likely to worsen over the coming months if further action is not taken on an urgent basis. The CFA is calling for an emergency preparedness plan that gives farmers confidence to overcome these challenges, targeting investments in a number of key areas. First, and most immediate of which, is emergency funding to address critical food supply challenges, enabling immediate targeted programming to help affected sectors address these unprecedented challenges. CFA had conducted a survey of agriculture commodity organizations across Canada more than 2 weeks ago now, which at that time identified $2.6 billion in financial impacts that pose urgent threats to the supply of food and viability of farm operations across Canada. Given the rapid evolution of this crisis, the scope and scale of these impacts has only increased. Second, this crisis is telling us that now is the time to wake up and get Canada's BRM suite of programs right for producers to adequately respond to the unique challenges posed by this global pandemic. Farmers need the confidence that they will receive the support they need from AgriStability to keep on farming if they see significant financial losses. The BRM suite was never designed to deal with this kind of crisis, and now is a time to get it right. The next time we may see an even bigger food crisis in Canada. Finally, further measures are needed to encourage Canadians to work on farm and in Canada's food processing plants. This includes financial incentives, but just as critically, prioritizing access to PPE, second only to health, to ensure all agri-food workers feel safe coming to work. Food systems around the world are under duress from unprecedented challenges and untenable operating conditions, with supply chain disruptions, lost markets, and labor uncertainty threatening many agri-food supply chains around the world. Just recently, the UN warned that the world is facing multiple famines of, quote, biblical proportions, with COVID pushing an additional 130 million people to the brink of starvation. Canadians and consumers around the world have always been able to depend on Canada's farmers to grow food, but today, Canadian farmers are asking for immediate assistance from our federal government to be able to continue fulfilling that responsibility. Without it, Canadian consumers can expect to see decreased quantity and variety of food at their local grocery stores, as well as higher prices in the months ahead, while undermining our capacity to export and assist with meeting the impending global food security crisis. Regardless of the economic plight facing so many during this truly global crisis, everyone strives to eat 3 meals a day, and Canada's farmers want to do everything we can to assist by providing access to the full breadth of affordable quality Canadian food products. Achieving this goal requires Canada's farmers and food businesses to overcome unforeseen obstacles, exorbitant new costs, and immense uncertainty in the coming months. Painting a single picture of these challenges is difficult, as Canadian agriculture is an incredibly diverse industry with hundreds of different commodities produced in regions across Canada. However, in the face of this unprecedented crisis, it is also a significant challenge, as one-size-fits-all solutions are incapable of addressing the diversity of issues that arise. We have witnessed the loss of food service markets for fish, mushroom, and potato farmers, just to name a few, who have seen markets evaporate overnight and now face the prospect of surpluses, sunk costs, and reduced production. We continue to see uncertain access to labor, forcing horticulture farmers to make difficult decisions about how much they'll plant, if they will at all this year, or if they'll have the workforce they need throughout the season to see those products go to market. And we continue to see the disruption of downstream supply chain partners, such as we've seen across a number of livestock processing facilities, driving increased costs, reduced markets, and raising the specter of animal welfare concerns and depopulation for many of Canada's livestock farmers, a truly regrettable last resort. Meanwhile, farmers across Canada, much like our partners in food processing, are taking on exorbitant costs and reduced efficiencies to maintain critical public health measures, while being price takers with no ability to pass those costs along. Despite this diversity, we hear an all too common story from farmers looking for COVID-related relief. They are ineligible for support, whether it's lumpy revenue that fails to see farmers qualify for wage subsidy, operating structures that preclude them from accessing the Canada Emergency Business Account, or the responsibility of being a critical infrastructure and producing an absolutely essential good that limits them from seeking the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. These existing measures do not respond to the urgent challenges they face in putting food on the table of Canadians. When it comes to agriculture measures made available, we would first like to note our continued appreciation for the government in acting so quickly to provide farmers with access to urgently needed temporary foreign workers. And we know this work continues to this day. Saying that, looming shortages of work permits still hold the potential to undermine the successful entry of workers to date, leaving farmers facing continued uncertainty. Furthermore, we were pleased to see government quickly take steps towards addressing liquidity in the sector through FCC and the Advance Payments Program. Yet, the unfortunate reality for many Canadian farmers is that they are not in a position to take on additional debt in the face of such uncertainty. Following on the most recent announcements, we're pleased to see the steps taken to help address a number of issues identified above, but based on dialogue with the affected sectors, they are inadequate to respond to the scope and scale of the challenges they attempt to address. When it comes to business risk management, I look at the collaborative efforts of all levels of government and what they've undertaken in mobilizing their resources to tackle the unprecedented health crisis posed by COVID. I applaud all orders of government in their continued efforts to protect Canadians' health, demonstrating what can be accomplished in the face of urgent challenges when we work together. However, maintaining and restoring Canada's agri-food supply chains to full capacity must be the leading priority behind the direct public health impacts of COVID. Yet, when farmers call for a collaborative FPT approach to address essential food production, farmers are told to look to existing BRM programs that farmers have for years identified as inadequate and which were never designed to respond to this kind of unprecedented crisis spanning the entire Canadian farm and food sector and posing such acute challenges to the Canadian food supply. In conclusion, Canadian farmers take pride in the fact that every day we feed Canadians. Every bite of food you have today and have had every day of your life started on a farm. Like most sectors of the Canadian economy, farmers have felt the tremendous pain brought about by the unprecedented nature of COVID. We will always work as partners with government to make nutritious and affordable food available to all Canadians. I thank you for your time and welcome any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. And now we'll start our question round. And we'll start with Mr. Soroka for up to 6 minutes. Go ahead, Mr. Soroka.
Sorry, I didn't realize I was up first. I thought John Barlow was up first. So,
are you good to go? I don't have John on my. Oh, sorry. I got the second hour. Yes, Mr. Barlow. Mr. Barlow, are you ready to go?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Sorry for that.
It's okay. I know Gerald would have been ready to go too. Thanks for the witnesses' testimony. You highlighted a lot of the concerns that we have tried to bring forward. The many of the programs that currently being offered by the government are not accessible by agriculture for a variety of reasons. It's unique business structure, unique financial position. But Mary, I'll start with you. And I appreciated the comments you had after the agriculture minister made her announcement of some of the assistance packages that were brought forward earlier this week that fall woefully short of the 2.6 billion that you had previously asked for. And your comment on that was, it was like having a burning house and offering, a bottle of water, a bucket of water. Why are these programs insufficient to meet the needs of agriculture? Why that comment?
Thank you for the question, John. Well, we know when we look at our pork sector, they had estimated that in order for them to, obviously none of the requests that are included in the 2.6 billion are people's expectations of coming out of this hole. What we're looking at is we want to be able to survive this. And if we look at the $50 million offered to pork and to beef, those did fall quite significantly short of the combined just over $800 million that they felt they needed in order to maintain herds or to survive COVID. And in general, I think we kind of walk a tight line there. We're so pleased to see that there's been some monies put towards agriculture, and we're thankful to have our Prime Minister mention it in the press. But and we're also pleased to hear him say that this is the beginning. So we're just trying to convey the sense of urgency. We need money now. People are having to feed animals now that we're supposed to go to slaughter, and it's having impacts on animal welfare and how people are going to survive this from the perspective of farms.
You brought up the Prime Minister, and he made an interesting comment during question period yesterday about that farmers should be happy with paying the carbon tax because they're actually gaining revenue from that. And you talked about being a price taker, and we have brought forward the fact that eliminating the carbon tax from agriculture would be an opportunity to help during this time, be more money in producers' pockets. I did an order paper question earlier this year asking the department for the data on the costs and the impact the carbon tax would have on agriculture. I was really shocked when I got the answer back last week that those documents are secret. So apparently there's some national secret in the impact the carbon tax has on agriculture. I would just like your opinion. Do you think that agriculture should know the impact of the carbon tax? And do you think during this COVID pandemic that farmers should be thankful that they're making money from making revenue off the carbon tax?
I didn't come today prepared to speak to carbon tax. I did come prepared to speak about COVID. And I think that we want to convey the message that we are keen to continue working with government. And hopefully we will see some real momentum and traction here, and we'll be able to find mechanisms, whatever they may be, to deliver meaningful financial backstop to give our producers confidence to move through this growing season. Because ultimately what we're faced with right now is investing hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in fertilizer, seed, fuel, equipment, people, and putting crop in the ground. And it's difficult to do that when we don't have any confidence that if something happens on farm, we won't go bankrupt, that there will be a meaningful backstop for us.
Thanks. And you bring up a good point with the article that Dr. Sylvain Charlebois had out last week or the week before on if there isn't some immediate assistance that we could lose up to 15% of our farms through this season. That will have a significant impact on our food security and certainly the price of groceries on the grocery store shelf. Not to mention, as Claire said, the opportunity for us to meet the global food shortage that could be as a result of this. How real is the financial crisis that agriculture is facing? And is that number that Dr. Charlebois brought up, is that accurate?
So we too saw those numbers, and just to put a real number on that, that's probably 30,000 farms that we're facing losing due to COVID this year. And the impact of that, certainly we will feel it on food, but rural Canada will certainly feel that beyond food, because agriculture is the fabric of rural Canada, and it really is the backbone of our entire economy. With regard to if we I haven't looked at how those numbers came to be, Mr. Barlow, but we can certainly supply you more information that we might not have with us today.
Claire, do you want to respond to that really quickly on, you talked about the opportunities for and an engine of growth in agriculture, but what impact would, if there isn't some assistance, cash injection for agriculture, and we lose those 30,000 farms, what impact will that have on our trade opportunities?
10 seconds, please, very quickly.
I think I cannot really comment on the revenue and the cash contribution. That's really something that our members are best to address. But what I want to say is that diversification and trade access, the fight against protectionism is perhaps going to be even more challenging now, and we cannot promote competitiveness in Canada if we are shut out of the growth from abroad. That will ultimately return, and the stimulus of competition that comes with it.
Thank you, Mr. Cito. And now for second round, so Cody Blois for up to 6 minutes. Go ahead, Cody.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for providing their testimony today. We certainly appreciate hearing from you. I'm going to start with my questions addressed to Ms. Robinson. This was touched on a little bit from some of our witnesses, but just briefly, are all sectors of agriculture being negatively impacted as a result of COVID-19?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Blois. We do know that there's massive diversity in Canada, not just in commodities, but the nuances of how that is plays out regionally. And we know that there are some commodities that are hurting exponentially now, and the level of hurt is certainly, it varies. I know here in Prince Edward Island we have a lot of potato growers, and we're certainly facing a great amount of uncertainty as we look to make the investments to put the crop in the ground for next year. We know mushroom farmers have thrown out millions of pounds of mushrooms. We know that greenhouse growers—
Mary, sorry to interrupt. I just want to, I have a number of questions I'll try to get through. So I'm hearing that it's diversified. Not everyone necessarily is feeling, some sectors may be doing better than others. Can you just highlight quickly some of the sectors that might be doing better than others?
I think that in Western Canada, our grain growers are seeing shipments move quite well with grain. Beyond that, I'm not really sure of anyone. Scott, can you, is there anyone that you would think of?
I mean, I would just speak to what Mary said. We understand there's a lot of uncertainty in front of grain farmers still moving forward, but from our understanding, things are moving reasonably well in that sector as we currently stand. Although, as you know, these things can evolve quite quickly. I think that certainly stands out as the sector that is, to some extent, in the current situation, at least, managing reasonably well.
Okay, thank you. Mary, in your presentation, you mentioned we wanted to extend the CERB, or that you want to extend the CERB. So is it my understanding that CFA would like to have all agricultural workers qualify for the CERB? Is that my understanding, or did I get that wrong?
We're certainly looking for financial incentives to bring people that are currently displaced from their usual job or unemployed to come and work on farm. And we feel that we need some financial tools to do that, because we need to incentivize people to leave home and put themselves out there in the workforce today.
What about the Prime Minister announced this week $4 billion for essential workers that could include some of the agriculture workers? Just briefly, how are your discussions going with the provinces and having some of that money flow to them?
Scott, can you speak to that? I'm not really up to speed on that.
Yeah, I think as it stands currently, I mean, as a national organization, we certainly aren't the ones having those direct engagements with the provincial governments. However, we have encouraged our members to look at that wage top-up as a real opportunity for an incentive there and to have discussions with their respective governments to see what can be done in that space. And we do hope there's some incentives possible through that structure, certainly.
Thank you. Mary, you talked about the fact that there was about $250 billion that has been put out, and you said largely this has not been available to agriculture, and I appreciate that certain circumstances that might be the case, but do you know the amount of farms that might have been able to enroll in the Canada Emergency Business Account so far? That just the $20,000 pay threshold. Have you heard from your members about rolling in that program?
We have heard from several members that have had trouble accessing that because of the structure of their business.
But surely there would be members out there that have the $20,000 payroll between $20,000 and $1.5 that are certainly benefiting from that.
Yes, I believe so, and we certainly have much larger operations where that money is maybe not that significant to keep them going. So there would be, again, diversity.
I want to talk about the $2.6 billion that you've referenced, and we've seen a lot about this in the media. I went on your website today. Where can I find that report? Is it public?
We submitted that to government as far as our emergency preparedness document with the strategy. And as far as the building of the numbers, I'm not sure if that's public yet or not. Is that, Scott? I
couldn't find it. And certainly if you could provide it to the committee, we'd appreciate it. I want to go to the approach to Agri-Food Emergency Prepared Plan. You referenced it in your piece. There's a number of different things you talked about, the emergency fund, the Agri-Invest stimulus of 5% for all farmers. Do you know how much that would cost? Because obviously you have the 2.6 of the emergency fund. You've talked about bringing agri-stability up to 85%. I hear that in my writing and I appreciate it. Do you have a global sum of what all those measures would cost?
I believe we know what it would cost for the Agri-Invest. I think, was it $1 billion? What was the number, Scott?
Yes, it was $1 billion, yeah.
And your question, sorry, Cody, you're wondering what the cost would be for?
The overall cost, I mean, there was 8 different measures that were put out. Agri-stability on any given year, we know it's about a $1.6 billion program per year. To move it back up to the reference margins at 85%, I was just wondering if that was costed as part of your proposal to government.
Scott?
Yes, I can speak to that. I mean, agri-stability, because it's demand-driven, is quite difficult to assess exactly what the cost would be, because as the situation evolves, that will change. Certainly with those 8 measures you're referencing were identified about 6 weeks ago now, actually, and so a lot has changed since that time. Certainly issues like access to PPE continue to evolve in terms of what the costs are. But the understanding of the increase on agri-stability, I think the minister herself has indicated that would cost around $400 million.
One final question, if I could, Mr. Chair. The emergency wage subsidy.
I guess we're basically out of time. Sorry about that, Cody. I need to move on to the next one. So, Monsieur Perron, pour jusqu'à 6 minutes. Allez-y.
Mr. Perron, for 6 minutes. Go ahead. Yes. Hello, everyone. I thank the witnesses for appearing. I'll start with Mr. Sullivan. Madam Sullivan, Mr. Donaldson, you mentioned that you don't feel like you have that much support. The cost of adaptation are over $800 million. So I would imagine that when you heard these announcements this week, you were somewhat disappointed. What exactly do you need more? You also spoke about identifying some of the structural weaknesses. Quickly, could you describe those structural weaknesses?
We had outlined for the Prime Minister in a letter that the best way to approach the liquidity issues or cost crunch issues that Canadian food companies are facing is, in fact, probably through the existing emergency programs that have set up for COVID-19 to address the problems that many different sectors are encountering. The challenge we have is that because those programs are based on revenue, we don't qualify. It's not our revenues that are impacted, it's our cost increases. So if we could amend the terms of the Canada Emergency Wage Benefit, for example, even if it was just for essential or critical infrastructure, to base that on net income, I think that would go a long way to helping a lot of companies. The other way is to take a look at using tax credits to allow companies to provide them with a tax credit for the costs that they've had to incur, particularly critical infrastructure organizations who are essentially required to keep going and incur these costs to be able to offset them at the end of the road. In terms of challenges...
Juste un instant, Madame, merci beaucoup.
Just a second. Thank you. I would like to point out that the translation is not coming through in French, so the colleagues will look into that. The technical services, could they look into that to make sure that the translation is flowing?
Monsieur le Président, Richard Lehoux, c'était la même chose pour moi.
Mr. Chair, I had the same problem. It's Mr. Lehoux. Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Lehoux. I didn't see your hand raised. If I knew it was a sound issue, I would have intervened earlier. So let's just wait for technicians to try to resolve the issue.
Ça va? Alors, je peux...
Can I continue, Mr. Chair? I can't hear you. Yes, try, Mr. Perron. Let's see. So let's carry on. Where you were discussing, you were identifying the structural weaknesses you identified, right?
Weaknesses we've really identified through the pandemic. We knew of them before, but they're really being magnified now. The first is, I think, a really profound lack of understanding of how Canada's food system works. We know that more and more consumers are urban-based. They've sort of lost that connection for where food comes from. But I think we're also seeing it with our policymakers. Agriculture Agri-Food Canada, probably 95% of its resources, its staff are focused on primary agriculture. That's important. But what we don't have equally is any department in this federal government that is focused on the entirety of the food system and understanding how the entire food system works. We also have a problem with the high concentration that we have in the retail sector in this country. It's virtually impossible. I mean, we ourselves are price takers in many cases, and 90% of the food companies in Canada would be considered smaller, mid-sized businesses. They simply don't have the power to negotiate on an equal footing with large retail enterprises. And I think finally, and this is a perennial Canadian problem, it's the split in jurisdiction between federal and provincial and territorial governments. And I know that that is something that we all deal with, but when we are in a crisis, I mean, this is really akin to this country being at war, and we're in a crisis situation. We have got to have the mechanisms where we're not sitting on calls with government officials saying, oh, well, that's the province, that's not us. And then we have to go off and try to figure that out. I understand it's difficult, but we need to work together to find better ways to link that communication together. We don't have the time as a country to sit and wait for all of that to be sorted out.
C'est bien, merci.
Well, that's great. Thank you. We know some of these issues of overlapping jurisdictions. Ms. Robinson, you spoke about issues with the current programs. I think maybe, like many of us, you're somewhat sick of hearing that the current programs, that there are programs available that could be used right now. Can you explain what doesn't work right now? How would your emergency fund work? How could it solve the issues for small agricultural businesses that don't have access to help right now and that need it? I'm thinking about an application from the Relève Agricole du Québec to that effect.
Thank you for the question. I would ask Scott to jump in here. He is our BRM expert at CFA.
Yeah, I think when we look at BRM, one of the most noteworthy sort of concerns we have is that it currently stands around 31% of Canadian farmers are in agri-stability, and that speaks to the number of farmers that are currently lacking in trust in the sufficiency of that program to respond to the risks they're facing in a normal year, let alone an unprecedented crisis like this. When we look at AgriInvest as well, I think it's very critical that we look at that $1.6 billion fund number that is being referenced and ensure that we look at how the funds that are available in that pool relate to the sectors facing the most hurt. And then when we look at a number of sectors, like, for example, the equestrian industry and horse farmers in Canada, they're unable in many respects to access those programs because they, for one reason or another, are unable to qualify for a farm business registration number in many provinces. So there's a myriad of issues that drive that. It's a very complex set of issues, but we've certainly been working for a number of years on targeted measures to address that need. And we believe in the current kind of acute crisis we're facing, there's a need for a more timely intervention, and that speaks to the emergency fund that you raised.
Well, merci beaucoup. Très rapide.
Thank you. Very quickly, Madame Sito. I understand of all the interveners, you're saying the federal assistance right now is insufficient. You spoke about the competition with American businesses, the report on that. Compared to what's happening here, they receive significant assistance from the government. What do you think would be the impact of that in the short term? That's quite obvious right now, but what about the immediate future? Quickly, Madame Sito. Madame Sito, are you still on?
En particulier, voit déjà des effets importants en termes de distorsion des marchés, qui ne pourraient qu'aller en s'accentuant.
Merci.
Well, thank you, Madame Sito. Some producers of soya especially are facing problems.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Thank you to all the witnesses for appearing today. It's really great to see all of you again on this platform. I think that the theme of my questions is really going to be on resiliency, how we build resiliency into the system, because I think all of our witnesses have elaborated and described the weaknesses that we have in our system, and I'm really interested in not only how we deal with those in the short term, but really what kind of things we have to put into place for the longer term so that we're better able to withstand shocks in the future. So maybe I'll start with Food and Beverage Canada. I really like to thank you, first of all, for mentioning our workers. I think that's really important to illustrate the job they're doing on behalf of Canadians and the dangers they're exposing themselves to, but also their families when they go home. And I think they really are the unsung heroes of what we're going through right now. But when you look at your industry, and I also appreciate your comment that sometimes policymakers, we don't have the expertise, but when you look at the state of the industry in Canada and what this pandemic has really thrust upon you, I really want to know, like, looking ahead for future shocks, what's the answer? What kind of things do we need to build into our system? Have our food processing centers become too centralized? Do we need to spread them out a bit more so that if one plant shuts down, others can take its place? I'm just curious of any kind of innovative ideas that your association can suggest to this committee about how we can withstand shocks in the future.
Yeah, thanks very much. And I will just echo again exactly what you said. There's no doubt in the last 8 weeks, I talked to food companies every day. And the commitment that the workers have made to not just their companies, but to Canadians is it's really moving. In terms of what we need to do going forward, I think the first thing that struck me when the pandemic started was the fact that we had absolutely no plan for the food system. It's clear that measures had to be taken to address the pandemic, and I don't question those. One of those measures was essentially turning off the economy, if you will, but we didn't have a plan for what we were going to do with critical infrastructure. So we have to do that. And this can't just be a lip service activity. We actually have to sit down and start to map out what the food system looks like from farm, including inputs to farm, all the way to retail and food service, so that we really start to identify where are the weak links here. Absolutely. There's about 10 different sectors in food manufacturing, the obvious ones, meat, bakery, dairy. The level of concentration in each is very different. Where they're located across the country is also very different. And I think we do need to take a look so we've got a good understanding of what the sectors look like. You know, we're private companies. There's not a lot we can do in terms of collaborating and cooperating, but I think we can prepare. And if we understand better what we look like and how we're organized, I think that will help us. Another thing we absolutely have to do, it was a problem before, is innovation. As an industry, we are the largest manufacturing sector in the country, but we lag behind most other manufacturing sectors when it comes to innovation, automation, those sorts of things. What role they could play going forward, it's hard to know, but we're going to have to take a look at that. And one thing we're going to have to start doing that we probably wouldn't have thought about before the pandemic is really thinking about how we lay out our food plants. You know, it's not as though in 6 months we can go back to how things were. We are going to be looking at social distancing for a long time. We didn't build our food plants to accommodate social distancing. We built them to accommodate food safety. And so now we're going to have to go in because this is going to change how we look at things. So that's going to mean a lot of capital investment on the part of companies. That too may require support. And, you know, it's hard. If you think about Agriculture, Agri-Food Canada, I think they have about 4,000 very loyal employees, maybe 50 of them focus on food and beverage manufacturing. In ISED, it's maybe 4 people, again, incredibly smart, incredibly dedicated, but we need to amp that up. If we're really serious about the food system from both a food security standpoint, but also from the fact economic contribution and our export opportunity, then we now have to start putting our money where our mouth is. And I don't think we always did that before.
Great. Thank you very much for that. Ms. Robinson, I'd like to turn to you and the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. Good to see you again. Continuing on the theme of establishing resiliency, I know that some sectors have got massive surpluses of produce or product because markets, as you said, have dried up. I'm curious about, you know, the government announced a plan of, I think, $50 million to purchase surplus food and redistribute it to food insecure communities. And we don't have many details on that yet. Mr. Forbes, the Deputy Minister, said it's still sort of a plan that's in process. I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that and you know, whether this might be able to serve as a model to help farms weather future shocks, because you know, we produce an abundance of food in this country, but unfortunately the fact is we still have so many Canadians that struggle to get adequate food in front of them each and every day.
Thank you for the question, Mr. McGregor. I think when we look at that $50 million, what CFA is doing is when we get more details, we'll be working with our commodity groups to make sure that they're well positioned to take advantage of that and to get food to the more vulnerable people in our population. And in regards to resiliency of agriculture and food as we move through this, I would like to highlight that we see 2 fairly significant opportunities to make impactful change, and that would be a long-term labor shortage strategy. And I know you're familiar with the work the Canadian Ag HR Council has done, and I think we need to definitely put some more focus there, more funding there, because they're doing wonderful things, and to see them build more solutions for all of agriculture is really meaningful. And the second
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. I'm going to have to cut it off here. We're already behind a little bit. So I want to start by thanking, that'll be all for this panel, and really want to thank the Canadian Agri-Food and Trade Alliance, Claire Citeau, and also Food and Beverage Canada, Kathleen Sullivan, James Donaldson, and also from the Federation, of course, Ms. Mary Robinson and Scott Ross. Thank you all. We will now suspend for 5 minutes and be back here in 5 minutes, and we'll start second panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Around.
With us this afternoon, we have Arnaud Attends, je vais changer en français. On a du Conseil de la...
We have from the Food Processing Quebec Group, Sylvie Cloutier, and also Mr. Dimitri Frey, Vice President.
Retail Council of Canada. From the Retail Council of Canada, Canadian Cattlemen's Association, Bob Lowe, President, Tyler Fulton, and Jason McClinton, Vice President, Grocery Division and Regulatory Affairs. So hopefully everybody was able to hear me on this one. And we'll start with a 10-minute opening statement by par le Conseil de la Transformation Alimentaire du Québec, Madame.
Madame Quebec Food Processors, Madame Cloutier. So it's up to me. Thanks for welcoming us today. The Conseil de la Transformation Alimentaire du Québec, the CTAC, is the main association of businesses in the food and drinks processing sector. Their goal is to support businesses in reaching their full potential to make sure that there is a sustainable food industry in Quebec. This sector purchases more than 70% of all agricultural products and almost 100%
on the French channel.
Go ahead, Mr. Soroka.
Yes, I think our presenter isn't on the French channel. She's speaking either on...
Attendez une minute. Oh, okay. Okay, is the witness, est-ce que vous êtes...
Are you on the French channel? Floor, I'm on the floor channel.
Alors, si vous pouvez le mettre sur le canal.
So maybe you should put it on the French channel if you're going to speak French, okay? And where exactly do I go? Just at the bottom of your screen. Or is it at the top? Bottom. That's to kick up the interpretation in French. Can you hear? Better? Can you hear? Is it better? This sector buys over... Go ahead. This sector buys over 70% of all agricultural products and almost 100% of fisheries projects in Quebec. And they process them, develop them, package them to offer quality, diversified, easily accessible food to citizens through the grocery shops throughout the year. It's the key link in the chain between primary agriculture and retail trade. Food and drink processors since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic are faced with major immediate challenges. They're trying to manage the health of their workers while responding to the need to maintain Canada's food supply in an environment that is quickly evolving. Even the first phase of the pandemic is ongoing. Several food businesses have ceased or reduced their activities because of issues related to liquidity, the inability to manage health considerations, and the increased absenteeism of workers. These challenges would have major impacts in the medium and long term. Given the situation that's evolving, it's important to fully understand the risk of business closures and all the impacts of the crisis. Some businesses already point out the following: dropping revenues, given the significant drop in sales in food. Restaurant Canada believes that 53% of restaurants have temporarily closed their doors given the COVID-19 pandemic, and that in the case of one restaurant out of 10, it would be a permanent closure. This has had a great impact on the food and drink processors, and especially in the food services sector. Several food processors are going through significant revenue drops because schools, hotels, and aerial and train transportation has stopped. The increase of costs related to COVID-19 are directly linked to the increase in absenteeism, labor shortages, salary bonuses that have been given out to maintain their workers, the increased use of PPEs, changes in schedules, changing shifts, and you have a slower queues in order to have great distancing. And the costs are going up. There are non-structural temporary changes within factories to protect workers where it's not possible to practice physical distancing. Buying equipment for tests, increase of benefits such as daycare benefits, and hiring counselors. In the animal protein sector, the needs and potential cost of slaughtering animals should also be a concern with the closures and slowdowns of establishments, and that brings about a reduction in the processing ability. We recognize the emergency measures announced by different governments to assist businesses to overcome COVID-19. These programs will be beneficial to several food businesses and drink businesses. However, some businesses are not eligible. The food sector was able to maintain continuous supply throughout the crisis, but several businesses are coming to the end of their resilience. The recent federal announcement promising assistance of $252 million is definitely below the needs expressed in this sector. The Canadian Agriculture Federation is asking for emergency funds estimated at $2.6 billion, and we have estimated at $820 million the cost and losses for food processors throughout Canada since the beginning of this crisis for the period of March up till now. Only for the needs in health equipment to protect employees, the cost estimates are $70 million from now to the end of the year 2020. The current programs do not adequately respond to the exceptional challenges we are facing. Our short-term goal and for the upcoming months is to make sure that as many food producers as possible be eligible to the financial support offered for COVID-19. If food industries are closed, nothing guarantees that things will get back to normal later. Supporting these businesses right now gives us a better chance to maintain them and to guarantee the strength of the food system beyond the pandemic. The additional safety measures, the full or partial closure of key chains such as slaughterhouses, the collapse of the hotel and restaurant industry that represented 35% of sales, and problems in the market, this could become insurmountable for thousands of businesses. From one day to the next, a significant portion of this market disappeared, so there is an imbalance in the supply chain. This precarious situation puts under great pressure the food supply system for the citizens that depend on the capacity of each sector to fully play its role. And the labor area is a paradox. In Canada, the unemployment rate is 13%. In Quebec, it's now at 17%. 7.5 million Canadians have applied for the CERB, but businesses are having labor shortages. And this issue would require a readjustment of the existing programs to maintain a minimal number of workers necessary for the good, smooth running of businesses. The Canadian government has to put in place programs to encourage workers to get back to work. The current crisis requires exceptional measures to accomplish our mission as food processors, means that we must have access to more generous assistance programs, to be more flexible, to take into account the ever-changing reality of trying to coexist with COVID-19. So trying to react to the impact of the current crisis. Beyond that, we must make sure that there is adequate food supply and we must remain competitive on the market. Some of the assistance programs announced so far cannot really respond to all the needs. Flexible programs for farmers and food processors have to be put in place to limit the long-term impacts on the supply chain. and to make sure that there's food security. The temporary foreign worker programs have to be more flexible to allow businesses to exchange workers based on the needs or to move workers between food production and processing. The Canadian government has to act right now to support the entire agri-food sector, which is good for job creation and is a significant stakeholder, economic stakeholder that ensures the vitality of regions. It is very urgent to be consistent on an issue so vital for our society and for the resilience of a significant part of our economy and our territories. This is what we are proposing concretely to support farmers and processors, a specific fund that would respond to the needs of processors to face the issues of dropping margins, specific assistance for small businesses, mostly concerned with the hotel and restaurant industry, and an assistance to maintain stocks and deep freezing, giving them assistance to cover some of the additional costs in personal protective equipment, a program to encourage workers to get back to work, and finally, a specific economic recovery plan for the manufacturing sector. And we should do so as soon as this summer. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freyer. And now to Retail Council of Canada, between yourselves, you got up to 10 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and other members of the committee for the opportunity to provide a retail perspective on Canada's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. For those of you unfamiliar with the Retail Council of Canada, we represent small, medium, and large retail businesses with presence in every community across the country. Our members' sales represent over 70% of the retail industry by volume. As the voice of retail since 1962, we proudly represent more than 45,000 storefronts in all formats, including department, specialty, discount, independent retailers, online merchants, and most importantly in this context, grocery retailers. Retail employs over 2 million Canadians, making ours the largest private sector employer in the country. Retail is by no means unique in being severely challenged by COVID-19. We know that this committee is looking at the severe combination of challenges for Canadians and food processors, producers, importers, freight, and transportation operators. Though grocery retailers have continued operations in this environment, they face a multitude of operational challenges. These include human resource and in-store security issues, sourcing of personal protective equipment, rapid adaptation of workplaces to emerging rules from health authorities, major increases in their cost structure, challenges with freight and shipping, and lastly, and importantly in this context, challenges with supply chains. I would like to focus my attention on this last point. I'll now be switching into French.
So I'll continue in French. The COVID-19 pandemic has caused an unprecedented shock in the food supply system in Canada. We have seen the demand significantly drop in restaurants, hotels, and institutions such as schools, a significant increase in demand in the retail trade. Now that Canadians are mostly staying and eating at home, the Canadian Retail Council has worked in close collaboration with producer groups, processor groups, and Canadian importers throughout this crisis to help them adapt to these changes in behavior and demands by consumers. We recognize and we applaud the work that the Canadian government has carried out so far, but we must do more to make sure that Canada is well placed to take up the emerging challenges in our food supply system in relation to COVID-19, and that's for the medium and long term. even if the emergency assistance program of $252 million for farmers and food processors that was announced on Tuesday this week is a step in the right direction. It is important that the Canadian government continue to work and support all the links in the food chain. Farmers, processors, importers, transporters, and retail businesses, as we try to fully understand some of the more long-term impacts of this pandemic and the entire food supply chain. So I will continue my presentation in English.
Furthermore, it is critical that the Government of Canada put in place proactive measures to allow for greater sourcing flexibility as the situation with COVID-19 continues to evolve at a rapid pace. We understand that the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is working on easing restrictions on a temporary basis for retailers operating in Canada to sell meat certified in one province to be sold in another, and meat and other foods produced in and labeled for other markets, such as the United States and other countries, to be sold in Canada. We are highly supportive of these measures, and we urge the Government of Canada to adopt them immediately on a proactive and temporary basis, rather than trying to address potential supply chain disruptions after they have already occurred. Adopting these measures on a proactive basis will help secure Canada's food supply now and throughout the COVID-19 crisis, and will minimize costs throughout the supply chain and, ultimately, minimize disruptions and impacts on food affordability to consumers in these challenging times. Finally, I'd like to personally thank Canadian farmers, food processors, retailers, and retailer employees who continue to keep Canadians fed and well throughout the COVID-19 outbreak. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, and I would be happy to take your questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. McClinton. And now we'll move to our question rounds. And Mr. Soroka, this time I think I got you right. I think we're going to have to do 5 minutes, folks, because we're going to be running out of time. So I'm going to, at my discretion, cut it to 5 minutes to everyone so that I can get the first round in. So go ahead, Mr. Soroka.
Okay. Ms. Cloutier, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. You said the CERB program isn't working so well in encouraging workers to get back to work. What are you seeing from this? That they'd sooner stay on CERB instead of going back to work, or what is the issue? No, she's still muted.
Ms. Cloutier, can you unmute?
There, she's good.
Yes, I think I'm unmuted. Yes, indeed, the current program is very competitive in the food processing sector. So in dollar terms, the food processors are asking for the same amounts of money that have been announced by the federal government. The Quebec government has decided to boost that amount to incite people to remain at work. So there is an additional $100 allocated, but on the total salary for the week. Now, the issue we are facing is that employees that have an opportunity to do overtime work don't do so because they don't want to lose the $100 bonus offered by the Quebec government. So one way or the other, we find ourselves in a...
I'm just saying, if there was a sliding scale, that would assist and drop this issue instead of just going to the $1,000 and then getting nothing. Would that be a help?
I believe so.
Buying food online, when it comes to restaurants and that, but how much is actually being purchased online and being delivered to their homes? Is any of that being done?
Yes, certainly. All of our members are making that an offering. Some of the challenges that they're seeing have to do more with delivery and that sort of thing. But every member that I've spoken with is offering online and remote ordering, and there's a particular emphasis on making that available to vulnerable populations.
Do you see this as a new industry starting to form where it actually would start seeing more people wanting to purchase more food directly in Canada?
We don't know the full implications of COVID-19 yet. One thing that is fairly certain is the world is never going to go back to the way that it was before, and certainly things like that. I would anticipate that some of those things might become more common, even as we start to emerge from the outbreak.
So if more people are purchasing more online, how much retail side, like storefronts, do you think are going to be impacted by this? How many closures, basically?
Our members are very, very active in the online space, and so it'll be interesting to see how things evolve. But our members are very, very active in that space, and so the ones that are going to do well are the ones that are going to continue to be very competitive in an online space.
What about then international markets, more so from the United States? Will they have an impact on our local markets as opposed to bringing more food in from other countries, or not?
So we were pleased to see with the renegotiation of CUSMA, right, the renegotiated NAFTA, that the Canadian government was able to keep the de minimis threshold at a reasonable level in order to not allow an unfair competitive advantage to international online competitors. So I anticipate that Canadian retailers will continue to remain very competitive in the online space.
Okay, Ms. Cloutier, when you were talking about how there's more protective equipment in slaughterhouses and various things to keep workers safe, do you believe that there's enough money left that can be passed on to the consumer, or is there too much for the consumer to bear and the government will have to implement and assist with some of these programs?
Yes, right now we believe that there's about $70 million only the fees for the additional protective equipment, and it's not just for the slaughterhouses; it's for the entire food processing sector. So this will have an impact on the cost of products for consumers if we don't have increased assistance in the medium or short term.
Cattlemen Association. So I think we'll do them now. Sorry about that. Bob Lowe, President, and Tyler Fulton, Director, and Jason McClinton. I believe I skipped you, didn't I? Did you get your statement?
No, they haven't done theirs yet.
Yeah. So could you do your statement now, please?
I hope you don't have a beef with them.
No beef.
We don't give up easy.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thanks for inviting the Canadian Cattlemen's Association to present about the challenges and solutions for the Canadian beef producers during COVID-19. My name is Bob Lowe, and I'm the president of the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. And with me today is Tyler Fulton, a director on our board and a beef producer from Manitoba, and Fawn Jackson, who is director of government and international affairs. Earlier this week, the Government of Canada announced funding for Canada's beef sector. I would like to first state that we are thankful for this initial investment. But we must stress that what was announced was one part of our three immediate asks, and that we really do need the other two to be able to manage through the difficult situation COVID-19 has put our industry in. I would like first to update the committee on the situation in the beef industry as it changes frequently. We now have over 100,000 head of cattle backed up within our beef supply system that were supposed to be harvested but have nowhere to go. Costs on average $4 a day to feed a market-ready animal, and so this is costing our industry an additional $400,000 a day. Although Cargill is back up and running, it is at a significantly reduced rate. We estimate each day we are adding 5,000 head of cattle to the backlog. As you can see, we're in a serious situation. Certainly the $50 million in funding that was announced for the set-aside program is helpful. We are currently working hard in coordination with governments to establish this program as quickly as possible. We are also thankful for the $77.5 million that will be invested in processing. We know that Eastern Canada in particular needs more processing capacity, and that processing facilities in Canada are continuing to make adaptations for COVID-19. Processing shortage is the crux of the challenge we are faced with, so this is a sound investment. I would like to express our deep gratitude to the workers within these plants who are integral members of our community and critical to the foundation of Canada's food system. Your work is essential and it does not go unnoticed. You are certainly our food heroes. I'd also like to express our gratitude for the meatpacking companies who are continuing their investment and innovation in these beyond challenging times. We will continue to strive to use the best information available to us and implement appropriate actions, and we will certainly take lessons away from COVID-19. I do want to say that I've been impressed by the level of coordination and collaboration throughout the full supply chain. From the team at the Market Access Secretariat, who helped make sure we had all the information to continue international trade, to the CFIA, who quickly mobilized to ensure we had adaptable inspection services, to the plants who implemented best practices, and to the frontline food workers who continually adapted to a difficult situation. It hasn't been easy, and it likely won't be easy for some time, but I can tell you that Team Canada is a great team to be on. But again, I must stress, beef producers have challenges in front of us, and we need to act quickly. Our board is very focused on the future and our young producers, and we know that COVID-19 is especially detrimental to the financial health of their farming operations. I'm going to hand it over to Tyler now, as one of the younger producers on our board, to talk about our two remaining asks. Tyler?
Thanks, Bob. Excuse me. Thanks, Bob. First off, we want to build an understanding about what risk management programs work for beef producers and which ones currently don't. In a nutshell, price insurance works. Agri-stability still has many challenges in its current form. Why doesn't agri-stability work for beef producers? The answer has to do with the structure of the program and the structure of the beef industry. Reference margin limits are one of the key reasons agri-stability doesn't work well for cattle producers. Without getting into details too much, this has to do with the fact that many producers, especially cow-calf producers, have low eligible expenses on the program, and we often produce our own feed and our own labor costs and have low labor costs. What this results in is our margin has to drop further than other commodities before triggering benefits for the program. For a long time, CCA has been advocating for changes to the program to improve equity and effectiveness to beef cattle producers. This includes the removal of the reference margin limit, the problem I was describing earlier, and removing payment caps and enhancing the trigger to 85% of the reference margin. We don't have more recent program participation rates, but in 2017, only 31% of farms participated in agri-stability, and we expect that very few of those were beef farms. So while we understand Minister Bibeau's referencing the importance of utilizing existing programs, it has to be understood that these existing programs, especially agri-stability, aren't largely used by beef producers. The main risk management tool for beef producers is livestock price insurance in the West and the RMP program in Ontario and ASRA in Quebec. It should be noted that our fellow producers in the Atlantic provinces don't have access to any appropriate tool. Our immediate recommendation to federal and provincial governments have been on these programs. Focusing on the livestock price insurance program, this is a program that is actuarially sound, and this is something that we as an industry are very proud of. It's a tool that works very well at very little cost to Canadian taxpayers. Right now is when cow-calf producers like myself typically buy price insurance. Unfortunately, the cost of premiums are tied to market volatility, and we all know market volatility has skyrocketed. Premiums for a calf would typically be around $10 to $15 per head, but because of COVID-19, the cost has risen to about $50 to $70 per head. As cow-calf producers, we have until the end of May 28th, to decide whether we are going to buy price insurance. And for many, it's been too expensive. We are asking federal and provincial governments for this year to cost share the premiums with us, similar to the way that they do it with crop insurance. This will maintain participation in the program and allow producers who are facing significant market uncertainty to weather the storm. On our farm, I consider price insurance to be the most important tool that we have access to. Without it, we have no control over our biggest risk that our operation is exposed to, which is market price risk. And being a younger operator with significant debt, my lenders require that I have a method to mitigate price risk. It allows young producers the ability to ensure a floor price on cattle and help to secure the future of their growing beef operations. Furthermore, young producers are typically highly leveraged and don't have equity to fall back on during downturns of the cattle market, putting Canada's long-term food security at risk. This underscores the importance of managing price risk with a timely and bankable program, which livestock price insurance provides. As you can see, price insurance is a very important tool, and yet our Atlantic neighbors still operate without it. And this is limiting their ability to manage risk and grow the beef sector. The region has land and forage to grow the herd, but lack this important risk management tool that supports herd expansion. Access to price insurance program is key to achieving these expansion objectives. Canadian and maritime beef producers would like to emphasize to the committee the utmost importance of establishing an Eastern Settlement Index under the Livestock Price Insurance Program, which would contribute to the national price insurance coverage across Canada. Ontario doesn't have livestock price insurance, but they do have RMP program, which they have requested topping up, as last year they had processing capacity shortages that resulted in significant financial pressures on their industry. The program funding cap severely limits its ability to provide adequate levels of support, particularly in challenging years. For these reasons, we are recommending further dollars be allocated to assist with the main risk management tools utilized by Canada's beef producers: livestock price insurance and RMP. Our third recommendation is to enhance the advance payments program by increasing the interest-free portion for beef cattle to $500,000, increasing the overall cash advance limit to $3 million, and extend repayment terms for beef cattle to 36 months. As the industry experiences reduced processing capacity and significant uncertainty on how long the extent of COVID-19 will last, these enhancements could provide added liquidity and flexibility for cattle producers to market their commodity at the best time and the best price, along with retaining more breeding cattle in their cow herd.
Mr. Fulton, we're unfortunately out of time. We have to move on, and we'll go to the questions, and you might be able to finish your thoughts with the questions. So again, apology for skipping over you the first time. So we'll go back to our questions, and now Lynn Bessette for 5 minutes, and you can split your time.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank the witnesses for being here today. I'll share my time, Mr. Chair, with my partner, Cody. We know the significance of the functions of the CFIA, the inspection work they do in the supply chain, and to make sure that there is food safety for all Canadians. That's why our government announced $20 million for the agency to boost their capacity in inspection services. My question is for the Food Processing Council. Have you heard from your members that there were any issues linked to the inspection capacity, or have there been any closures linked to that situation during this pandemic? I will let my colleague Dimitri Frez answer. Before the 20 million announcement, yes, there were some operations that had slowed down for 2-3 weeks. Things have improved. But the key element is that some inspectors fear entering these factories, and that could slow down the slaughter speed because there are people who want to work, but they are somewhat afraid of the COVID, even if the business has provided some masks and helmets. There is a lot of trepidation about entering. Another question, the Food Processing Council, do you believe that some sectors are more affected than others in this crisis? Yes, all sectors are directly linked to the restaurant industry, hotels, schools, institutions, the cafeteria, everything that is linked to the food industries. They're very seriously affected. And definitely the meat sector.
Mon première question est pour...
My first question is also for Ms. Cloutier. You referred to the $820 million of additional costs or losses for your industry. Do you expect the Canadian government compensate your sector for all these losses? Yes, we do hope that the government readjust the current programs to provide greater flexibility and to be able to offer these programs to food processors that require it. Yes, we do have some expectations in relation to the government, just to make sure that there is no production in the value chain from farm to table. And if we have a link in the chain that is weaker, this could cause more problems later.
And your retailer council, are profit margins being impacted in the retail side? And are there some success stories? I know in my riding of King Sance, some of our smaller retailers are actually doing quite well. They've been able to pivot and have a lot of success. In about 30 seconds, could you highlight that?
Yeah, and thank you for the question. It is without question, our grocery members have been very fortunate in that they've been able to operate throughout this crisis. It's significant impacts in terms of PPE, having to restructure stores. We've seen violent incidences, unfortunately, increasing quite a bit. So there's been a very big impact there. But I think I'd also like to, if I may, to answer that question, is that a significant number of our members who have not been deemed essential have not been in operation right now. And they are looking to reopen their stores as the economy reopens. And I think it's really great to see that the economy is reopening and that the retail sector is going to be able to come fully back to life again.
Thank you very much. And just to the Cattlemen's Association, loved the reference to Eastern Canada being a Nova Scotia MP. Where are the provinces at on this? Obviously, the livestock insurance price, that's a provincial program. My understanding is there's only 3 provinces. It's easy to say that we should implement it. I'd love to see it too, but where are the provinces in relation to this?
If I can answer that, there's 4 provinces on it right now. And it's not a provincial program, so to speak. The federal government does backstop it. The thing about the Maritimes is they have absolutely nothing for risk management for the beef industry. And that's, I mean, with this COVID-19, I can't imagine myself being from Western Canada not having anything, absolutely zero that works in the cattle industry. So
they would have business risk management, though.
Thank you, Mr. Blois and Mr. Lowe. Thank you. And we have to move to the next question. And Monsieur Perron pour 5 minutes.
Mr. Perron for 5 minutes. Yes, thanks for being here. I would start with Madame Cloutier. First of all, I would just like us to come back to the need to have a scale in these support measures offered to the citizens. The Canadian emergency benefit, we propose that it should be handled like unemployment insurance. So how did you handle this? How did it reduce your production? What are your needs, strictly speaking? Was the question for me? I'm sorry, there was an interruption for some seconds, so I will let Dimitri, my colleague, handle that. As far as labor force, yes, there is competition. I think what we've asked is for a restructuring of programs to allow students to either go to the fields or to work in the factories, mostly in the summertime. When the harvest season starts, the businesses' needs will be mostly on fruits and vegetables. We would have a greater need for workers in the harvesting. All the temporary foreign workers are not yet here. So we will require more students and local workers. We would like to have an incentive program just to make sure that students, those earning less than $550 a week, would really be encouraged to work. There was a program announced yesterday by our premier in Quebec in relation to those working in the CSSLD. I think we can copy that example, maybe offer some bonuses for those who would like to work at certain times, those who want to do some overtime, who want to work more, really offering an incentive to people to want to work and to continue to maintain the food supply in Canada. Now, as far as these foreign workers, Mr. Fry, the people in the government said 85 to 90% of the foreign workers at this time would be here already. Is that the case? No, not in our processing industry. I think they're talking about workers at the agricultural level. Factory workers are covered by another program. I think a lot of businesses are expecting them. They have to come, then there is a 2-week confinement period. Even if these workers came in today, they couldn't go to work before 2 weeks. So right now there is a shortage. Thank you. This week we also heard, Madame Cloutier, you were in the press briefing where they were underlining the insufficiency of the current measures announced. I would ask Mr. Lower Fulton of the Cattlemen's Association, what happens? The $50 million announced for beef, how long can that keep you going in the cattle industry?
It's going to help pay for the extra feed. And if you take the number of cattle there that are backed up, that 50 million was actually gone about 2 weeks ago. It won't last very long.
Bon.
Well, there you go. So you've already spent all the money. Well, it shows the importance of having that amount. Earlier, you spoke about international competitivity and the support that foreign countries offer the agricultural producers compared to what obtains here in Canada. I would just like to hear more from you. What do you think the consequences would be if we don't have a higher level of support for the agricultural sector and if we don't have a stronger application of the reciprocity in standards in your sector?
Is that, to me, you were cutting in and out. I couldn't really hear you.
Pour vous.
Yes, it was you, Mr. Lowe.
Heard it was kind of being cut in and out, but you're asking about what our commitments, international commitments?
Maybe I can just repeat it if the chair allows me to repeat it with the cutting in and out. I was just asking, there is a lot more support to the agricultural sector, especially in a place like the United States, compared to Canada. What do you think? What would be medium and long-term consequences of that if we don't do more? And I would also like to know what you think of the application in terms of the reciprocity and standards, what we import from outside in terms of the quality expected from you.
To the first question, the United States, you mentioned they are supporting their industry in a different way than Canada supports our industry. But there is a lot, to my mind, there's a lot more appreciation for agriculture in some other countries than there is in Canada. I just
thank you, Mr. Lowe. I unfortunately we have to move on. And now Mr. McGregor for 5 minutes.
Monsieur
Mr. Chair, just maybe a point of order. Maybe we should allow Mr. Lowe 10 seconds to complete his answer. I had to repeat the question because of technical issues. Well, I already accorded him 30 seconds more, so I think we have to go. Mr. Lowe, okay, just you can always come in later.
5 minutes, please. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And I think my questions with the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. I understand that one of the requests was for the set-aside program. However, in the past, if you look at Alberta's example, the last time they had a set-aside program in place was to deal with BSE. And Alberta's Attorney General at that time, or later on, found that a large amount of the money went to big multinational corporations like Cargill and Tyson Foods. And so with the current crisis that we're in, I just want to hear your thoughts on how do we ensure that the money is making its way to smaller scale cow-calf operators? And what do we do with the huge glut that will result from it later on in the fall, because we know that's going to depress prices, just because I think a lot of really small scale operators are going to be in some really deep red ink here as a result of this. And I just want to ensure that this program is not going to the huge multinationals, but is actually going to the smaller scale operators that will desperately need it.
The set-aside program is designed to help with the feeding of cattle that we have to keep longer. So it will go to the people who actually own the cattle, which is, and it's different now than it was in BSE. Cargill, I'm not sure about JBS. I know for sure Cargill does not own any cattle, so they will not get any of this set-aside money. The backgrounder market, which is between the cow-calf and the feedlot, they're backing up too. They hopefully will be part of this set-aside program. Where the cow-calf sector comes in is in the price insurance. That's where that's designed to help them, this price insurance.
Okay. The other thing I wanted to ask about too is you may have heard that the federal government is allocating $50 million to buy surplus produce from around the country and link it in with food insecure communities. Do you think that this is something that your industry could participate in? I know you're having problems with meat processing at the moment, but we have a problem in Canada where we produce an abundance of food, but we still have a lot of families across the country which are struggling to put good quality meals in front of themselves every day.
You answered your own question pretty much.
Yeah.
We would not be adverse to donating beef to where it would need to be, but it's the processing side of it. It can't, a live cow doesn't do a food bank any good at all. So we need to get that animal processed, and that's the problem with what we're having right now is the processing part of it is the bottleneck. So.
And going forward into the future, we want to be able to withstand future shocks like this. So if we have exposed how vulnerable our meat processing sector is with, 75% of our processing capacity in one province, and you see what happens when one plant shuts down for a week, How, in your opinion, how do we mitigate that in the future? Do we need to find a way to encourage a more decentralized model so that farmers have options and we're not creating this kind of a backlog? I'm just looking for how we establish resiliency in the future.
And we are too. We aren't ready to give it up. The big monster processing facilities, not only in cattle, but in every other form of agriculture, leads to efficiencies that enable the price in the grocery store for our food to be pretty reasonably priced for pretty good stuff. If we split the process, well, we'll go with beef because that's what I'm familiar with. You make a lot more smaller plants, you lose the efficiency, and which is in turn going to drop the price that I get for my cattle, and it's going to raise the price of food in the grocery store. So I think we're all going to learn from this. We're all going to go through it together, including the processors. And they're doing stuff within those plants now that is, I mean, they're super innovators.
Yeah.
And they want to process cattle, and they're making it pretty much, another pandemic, you never know, but we'll be a lot more prepared under the same system than we were this time.
Yeah, our committee in the last Parliament toured the Cargill plant in Ontario, and it was quite the operation to look at.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGregor. And final 5 minutes to Francis Drouin. Go ahead, Francis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't know I was going to get 5 minutes, so merci à vous. And just before I go on, I will bring it to English. And my first questions will go to the Canadian Cattlemen's Association. I know that there's a couple asks that you've outlined, but the first one is also asks for provinces' participation. And I know that the government in Alberta made a recent announcement, and let it be clear, I do want to congratulate the government of Alberta and Premier Kenney, a Liberal can say this, for joining on this. And I'm just wondering, has other provinces jumped on board yet, or are we still waiting for that particular program?
As far as I know, we're still waiting for that for the other provinces to jump on board. I think Alberta was the first one out the gate.
Okay, and what? How is this going to help your beef producers through that particular program? And is there? And we'll get to the other sections of your asks, but how's that going to help them?
It will help with paying when we've got cattle in my feedlot right now that should have been processed a month ago. So they get a certain weight, and if they can't get marketed, we still have to feed them. I mean, cattle have a shelf life. You still have to keep feeding them, but meanwhile, the price is going down. The feed costs stay relatively the same. So it's an additional cost that's fairly significant. That's where the set-aside program, it'll help pay for the extra feed that's going into those cattle.
Point of order, Mr.
So,
Chair.
Mr. Drouin, yeah, I just got told that that was an extra question, and I've got too many things going on here, so I had you on the list, but effectively that was the end of the round with Alistair McGregor, and so we have to close the question on this panel. And I want to thank the Conseil de Transformation.
Mr. Chair, a point of order.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Soroka, go ahead.
Because we had missed the Cattlemen's Association and we were not able to question them, is it possible that we could have a few questions?
I'll give you 2 minutes, Mr. Soroka.
I'll pass this on to Mr. Barlow.
Go ahead, Mr. Barlow.
Yeah, thanks. Just really one question to the Cattlemen's Association. Thanks for giving us the time, Mr. Chair. But you talked about that the existing $50 million through a program that's not new. Agri Recovery's been there for every year. But the $50 million you said, Bob, would last you is already gone. What is needed to get the cattle industry through this in terms of the budget for a set-aside program?
Ooh, if I can turn this over to Fawn, she'll be more familiar with the numbers than I am.
Sure. So on the set aside, we estimated, we did a range from 35 million to 135 million. but we think that we're probably going to be closer to the 135. And then the livestock price insurance, we've also estimated a cost around the 165 million.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Is that good? Okay. So this ends our second panel.
Monsieur le Président, Monsieur le Président.
Allez-y.
Mr. Chair, go ahead. I just have a quick comment, a point of order, because given the translation, there are some delays in the internet network. We were not able to finish. I was trying to ask a question. You gave additional time to Mr. Drouin. He's a great guy, but I don't think it's fair in terms of time allocation. You've given time to Conservatives. You should give the privilege to Mr. Lowe to at least finish his answer he was giving me on the reciprocity of standards. Yes, I had given you 30 seconds more.
The question that you had for Mr. Perron. Mr. Lowe, are you still?
Do I get this 30 seconds more?
Yeah, finish the answer that you had with Mr. Perron.
Oui.
Okay, thank you. The agriculture sector in Canada, I think, has been taken for granted for a long time, which maybe it's more important in other countries to the people. We're trying to change that, but as far as your standards in North America, we basically run under one standard. It's the same. We do the same thing in the U.S. or here as they do in the U.S. and vice versa. They are our biggest export market. So does that answer your question?
En fait, oui, je voulais.
Yes, I just wanted to know if these brought about some additional difficulties for you.
I think if I could jump in, this is Fawn Jackson, and I think in terms of comparing us to the United States, I got unmuted by the host, is that we're utilizing the programs that work best in each location. And for us here in Canada, we think that the livestock price insurance, the RMP, are the key programs that we need to be utilizing. And of course, we have to compete in an international scale. So we are very closely monitoring what's happening in the US and in Europe, who have strongly stood up and supported their farmers.
Mr. Clerk, just a point of order. I think we've lost our actual chair. I don't see Mr. Finnegan.
Yeah, I'm back. My page had closed, so with bad connection. So while I'm still here, I guess we're gonna close the meeting with the panel. I would like, however, to invite our members to stay on. We got a few business issue to do, and hopefully the technical team will allow us a few minutes extra. So thank you to the panel, and again, apologies for the little technicalities that happened. And so with the technical team, with the membership, today we had a discussion amongst the four parties, and we came up with some kind of a roadmap to go forward. And I can read the motion not the motion, but kind of the agreement that we came together with. And je vais le dire en français.
So I'll read it in French. That relative to the study of the Canadian response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the chair, in consultation with the clerks, the analysts, and I'll bring together a panel of witnesses for the next meetings of the committee. And that as far as possible, these panels will set up by witnesses proposed by the recognized parties who work in the following agriculture sectors: the dairy industry, the fruit and vegetable industry, agricultural laborers and foreign workers, the cattle industry, and small agricultural businesses. That beyond the appearance has already been arranged for the Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food that the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship be also invited to appear for the segment relating to labor force and foreign workers. That based on the circumstances and the evolution of the situation and available spots in the panels, the committee could add witnesses as need be. So, grosso modo, we agreed on those. If somebody wants to propose a motion. I know we're already beyond our time. Mr. Chair, I would suggest that we vote right away on that. I believe we have a consensus on that. So maybe you can give me a little sign, head sign, or a thumbs up. That's what we agreed already. Well, I understand that it wasn't within the committee. I know we have a consensus, so let's go with that. Let's hope next time things will go better on my end. Once again, I'm sorry about these little inconsistencies, these issues. Well, part of it is not really your fault. You have these little delays before the witnesses speak. They're trying to listen to the tail end of the translation, and it's maybe just take all of those things into account. Maybe we should also reduce the panel time. We're giving them 10 minutes. Maybe we should reduce it to 7 minutes if you want to have a better balance between the questions and the testimony. That's something we could look into for next time. Thank you.